Hey everyone, welcome back to the Violet Vault. Okay, let me ask you something. What if I told you that that awesome gaming PC you've got, the one you spent a good chunk of change on, could do a lot more than just get you to the next level in your favorite game? What if, while you were at work or out with friends or even sleeping, it could be quietly earning you a passive income? Well, today, we're going to dive into exactly that, how the powerful hardware you might already own can become a valuable piece of digital real estate working for you 24/7. Let's get right into it.
This quote right here really hits the nail on the head. It perfectly sums up this massive shift we're seeing in the world. Now, flops, that sounds super technical and complicated, right? Don't worry about it. It's just a fancy way of saying raw computing power. And that power, my friends, is the new oil. It's the fuel that runs the entire AI revolution. And because of that, it's become one of the most valuable resources on the entire planet.
So let's make this personal. Think about that powerful graphics card, your GPU, sitting in your computer. You probably use it for gaming. What, maybe a few hours a day, a few hours a week? So what's it doing for the other 20+ hours of the day? It's just sitting there, silent. Economists actually have a name for that. They call it dead capital. Sounds pretty grim, right? But what if we could wake it up? What if we could turn that dormant power into a piece of digital real estate, an asset that actually pays you rent?
Okay, so you might be wondering, why is this happening now? What's the big deal all of a sudden? Well, the answer is actually pretty simple. The world has developed this ferocious, almost unbelievable hunger for computing power, and that hunger is just getting bigger every single day. You know, every single time you generate a picture with an AI or ask a chatbot a question, you're not just talking to the internet. You are tapping into thousands of GPUs humming away in some massive data center. The companies building these incredible tools, they're in a constant global arms race to get more and more power to train their next big AI model. And this intense demand has completely changed the game. It's transformed computing power from just a utility into a red-hot commodity. Now, when you first look at this slide, it might seem a little weird. You're probably thinking, wait a minute, the price to rent a top-tier GPU has dropped a lot? Doesn't that mean it's less valuable? And that is a totally fair question. But here's the twist. This isn't a sign that demand is collapsing. It's actually a sign that the market is growing up. It's getting more competitive. And you know what that means? It means this is no longer a game that only giant tech corporations can afford to play. The door is starting to open for everybody else, people like you and me.
So that leads to the big question, right? How can you, an individual with a PC in your home office or your bedroom, actually plug into this massive market? The answer is in this fascinating new model that lets you essentially find a renter for your hardware, someone we're going to call your silicon tenant.
The technology that makes this all possible is called DePIN. I know, it's another one of those crypto-sounding acronyms, but stick with me, because the idea behind it is actually brilliant. DePIN stands for Decentralized Physical Infrastructure Networks. Just think of it like an Airbnb, but for computer power. Instead of listing your spare bedroom, you're listing your GPU's spare time. These networks connect thousands of individual computers from people all over the world, and together they create this one giant global supercomputer that AI companies can rent a piece of.
So how does this compute sharecropping actually work? Well, it's surprisingly simple. First, when you're not using your computer, you connect it to one of these DePIN networks. That's step one. Then, the network itself acts like your digital property manager. It does all the heavy lifting of finding a paying tenant, usually an AI company that needs a burst of processing power. And finally, step three, that AI company becomes your silicon tenant. They pay to use your GPU's time, and you, just like a landlord collecting rent, earn passive income.
And I want to be really clear, this is not some fantasy futuristic idea. This is a real thing that is happening right now. It's a functioning ecosystem. You've got companies like IO.net and Vast.ai that are already acting as these digital property managers. They handle all the complicated stuff, the matchmaking, the payments, all the technical logistics, which makes it possible for anyone to get involved, not just computer science majors.
Okay, let's pause for a second and get to the part that really matters to us all. Let's talk about the numbers. It's so important to look past the hype you might see online and get down to the grounded reality. So, as your friend and mentor, let's break down what the return on investment, the ROI, actually looks like if you decide to become a compute sharecropper.
So let's start with the best case, most optimistic scenario. This data here is for a specific little low-power device that was built for this kind of work. The upfront cost is super low, less than $300. And with a daily profit of just over $2, you could potentially break even in about 141 days. That's less than 5 months. That sounds absolutely incredible. But And you knew a but was coming, right? This is a big but. This is far from the whole story. Now, let's look at the other side of the coin. This quote is from a YouTuber named Modern Mining, and he runs a bunch of high-end GPUs, the kind a serious gamer would own. And he paints a very different picture. He says you could be looking at a 911-day ROI. That's rough. We're talking about 2.5 years just to break even. So what gives? Why the massive difference between 5 months and 2.5 years?
Well, it really all comes down to one critical factor: your upfront cost. This number right here, $3,500, is an estimate for what a powerful, top-tier AI rig might cost in 2026. For perspective, just a couple of years ago, a similar setup might have been closer to $1,800. So when your initial investment is that much higher, it's just simple math. It's going to take a heck of a lot longer to earn that money back.
Now listen, the point of showing you that isn't to discourage you or scare you away from this, not at all. The point is to make sure you go into this with your eyes wide open. You have to do the math for your own specific situation. So let's walk through a practical checklist you can use to build a much smarter approach.
Think of this as your homework. Every single one of these points is a lever that can move your profits up or down. First, your electricity rate. This is huge. It's your single biggest ongoing cost. Go look at your latest utility bill. A few cents per kilowatt hour can honestly be the difference between making money and losing it. Next, your hardware. It's not just about raw power, but how efficient it is. How much performance do you get for every watt of electricity it burns? Then there are the network fees. The platform you use will take a cut. You have to know what that percentage is. And this one is crucial. If you're getting paid in a crypto token, you have to be prepared for that price to go up and down like a roller coaster. That volatility is a real risk. And finally, check your local rules, and just remember, anytime your computer is turned off, it's not making you money.
So it's really important to reframe how you think about this opportunity. This is not a get-rich-quick scheme. It is absolutely not a lottery ticket. The best way to think of it is as a slow yield model. It's about taking an expensive, underused asset that you probably already own and figuring out how to turn it into a productive part of your financial life.
So I'm going to leave you with this one question to think about. Look over at that powerful computer sitting in the corner of your room. Right now, as it sits there, is it just dead capital? Is it just an expensive toy collecting dust? Or could it be your first digital employee? Could it be your next silicon tenant working for you while you sleep? I would love to hear your thoughts on this whole idea. After watching this, what's the very first step you're going to take? Are you going to go dig up your latest electricity bill to check your rate? Or maybe you'll start researching some of those DePIN networks we talked about. Let me know in the comments below what your first step is going to be. As always, thank you so much for watching.
Wow, that was something, right? But don't go anywhere, there's more coming, and it's going to make you think in a whole new way. Quick reminder, if you like learning cool stuff without the fluff, subscribe now. You won't regret it.
All right, welcome back everyone. So glad to have you here. Today, we're going to tackle one of the absolute biggest, most fundamental challenges in the entire world of blockchain and crypto. I want you to imagine for a second that you've built the most secure vault in human history. It's digitally impenetrable. But then, you realize it's completely blind and deaf to everything happening outside of it. How on earth does that vault know what's happening in the real world? That, right there, is the heart of what's called the Oracle problem, and we're going to break it all down today. So let's just start with the core question, right? We talk all the time about smart contracts. They're supposed to automatically handle agreements when certain things happen in the real world. Like if a stock hits a certain price, or a sports team wins a game, or even just what the weather is on a particular day. But here's the giant catch. That contract is sealed inside a blockchain, totally cut off from everything. So how in the world can it possibly know if any of those things actually happened? To really get to the bottom of this, we have to first understand a basic limitation of smart contracts. I mean, they're an amazing piece of tech, but they're built with a very specific and, honestly, a very intentional blind spot. I love this analogy, so let's run with it. Picture a robot judge. This judge is programmed to be perfect, totally logical, completely unbiased. The only problem? This robot judge is locked inside a soundproof, windowless digital vault. It has zero access to any outside evidence. Now, this is done on purpose. By design, smart contracts can't just go out and grab off-chain data from the internet. This is what keeps them so secure and predictable. But it also makes them, well, kind of useless on their own. And this huge, fundamental challenge has a name: the Oracle problem. It's the puzzle of how you feed real-world external information into a blockchain system without totally wrecking the security and decentralization that make the blockchain so special in the first place. So what's the solution? How do we get our robot judge the evidence it needs to make a ruling without letting it out of that secure vault? Well, the answer is you hire a special kind of messenger, a go-between who can bridge that gap between the digital world and the real world. And that messenger is called an oracle. At its core, a blockchain oracle is the data bridge. It's a service that goes out, finds and verifies real-world data, and then securely feeds it to the blockchain in a language that the smart contract can actually understand and, most importantly, trust. They are literally the eyes and ears for our robot judge, the trusted couriers delivering the facts of the case. Okay, let's make this super practical. Imagine a farmer out in Fresno, California. Her entire livelihood depends on getting enough rain for her crops. She decides to buy a new kind of crop insurance powered by a smart contract. The agreement is simple. If the total rainfall in Fresno this season is below, say, 10 inches, the policy automatically pays out. No claims adjusters, no paperwork. But how does that contract know the rainfall total? An oracle connects to a trusted weather service, fetches that verified data, delivers it to the contract, and boom, the farmer gets paid instantly and automatically. The whole process, when you break it down, seems pretty straightforward. Step 1, the smart contract sends out a request for some information. Step 2, the oracle goes and fetches that data from a reliable source, like a weather API or a stock market feed. Step 3, the oracle verifies it, formats it, and delivers it onto the blockchain. And finally, step 4, the smart contract uses that new info to do its thing. Simple, right? Well, maybe not so simple. So what happens if our trusted messenger isn't actually trustworthy? Or what if it just makes an honest mistake? See, anytime you rely on just one single source for your information, you create a huge, massive vulnerability. And believe me, this isn't just a what-if scenario. Take a look at this number. $403.2 million. That is the amount of money that was stolen from DeFi protocols in the year 2022 alone, specifically because of Oracle manipulation attacks. The critical thing to understand here is this. If a hacker or a scammer can control the Oracle, they control the smart contract. They can trick it into thinking a stock is worthless when it isn't, or that a game was won when it was lost, and drain all the money. And hey, don't just take my word for it. The Bank for International Settlements, a pretty serious organization, put it perfectly. Having one centralized oracle feeding data into a decentralized system is a basic contradiction. It creates a single point of failure that is just begging to be exploited. It's like you built this incredible, unbreakable fortress and then gave the only key to one single person. This whole problem gets even scarier in the world of DeFi, or decentralized finance. Now, in traditional finance, Wall Street, if somebody manipulates market data, they usually get caught. There are regulators, there are consequences. But in the often anonymous world of DeFi, holding people accountable can be way, way harder. And that, unfortunately, makes the temptation to cheat the system much, much higher. Okay, so if a single messenger is way too risky, what's the answer? You probably guessed it. You don't trust just one messenger. Nope. You hire a whole crowd of them, and you force them to all agree on what the message is before it gets delivered. And that is the brilliant idea behind decentralized Oracle networks. So instead of one company, they use tons of independent computers called nodes to all go out and find the same piece of data. Then, these nodes have to reach a consensus. Basically, they have to vote on what the correct data is. And here's the magic trick. They use financial incentives. Nodes have to stake their own crypto as collateral. If they report honestly, they get rewarded. But if they lie, their staked crypto gets slashed. It's taken away. It makes honesty profitable and dishonesty incredibly expensive. This whole idea of consensus is really about strength in numbers. Think back to our farmer in Fresno. If one source says it rained, okay, that's one data point. But if 100 independent sources all report the exact same rainfall data, well, now you can be incredibly confident that the information is accurate. The system is designed to trust the wisdom of the decentralized crowd. This whole system works because of a really cool concept from game theory called a Schelling point. The basic idea is that a group of people, even if they can't talk to each other, will naturally gravitate towards the most obvious correct answer. For a decentralized oracle, the truth is that obvious answer. Every single node is financially incentivized to just report the real-world fact because they know everyone else is incentivized to do the exact same thing. It's a system designed to align on reality. So this technology is about way more than just reporting stock prices or sports scores. It is creating a brand new foundation for verifying reality itself. We're talking about building what could be an entire economy of truth, which, let's be honest, is becoming more important now than ever before. I mean, think about it. We live in an age of AI-generated images, videos, deepfakes. It's getting harder and harder to know what's real. As our digital and physical lives continue to blend, having a trustworthy, decentralized way to prove that something actually happened in the real world could become one of the most valuable services on the planet. And this leads us to this wild, futuristic idea called truth mining. Just imagine a world where you, as an individual, could get paid to act as a human oracle, where your physical presence, your own eyes and ears on the ground, becomes a valuable part of this data network. For instance, let's say a city has a smart contract to pay a construction company once a new bridge is finished. How does the contract know the bridge is really done? Well, a network of truth miners in that area could literally go to the location, use a special verified app on their phone to confirm, yep, the bridge is built, and submit that proof. Their collective agreement unlocks the multi-million-dollar payment for the company, and they each earn what's called a truth dividend for their work. Being a verified eyewitness could become a real side hustle, maybe even a full-time job. So that leaves us with this one last really big question to think about. As artificial intelligence gets better and better at creating synthetic realities that are indistinguishable from the real thing, will our most important human job be to simply and reliably verify the one that's actually real? The Oracle problem started as a super technical blockchain issue, but its solution might just be pointing us toward a whole new human economy built on truth. What do you think? Let me know down in the comments. Could you see yourself being a truth miner? If you got some value out of this today, hitting that like button really helps the channel out. And of course, subscribe so you don't miss our next deep dive. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Wow, that was something, right? But don't go anywhere, there's more coming, and it's gonna make you think in a whole new way. Quick reminder, if you like learning cool stuff without the fluff, subscribe now. You won't regret it.
All right, let's talk about something you've probably seen a dozen times. You know those DNA kits? You spit in a little tube, you mail it off, and a few weeks later, boom, you find out you're 10% Irish and have a long-lost cousin in Ohio. It seems pretty simple, right? But what really happens to your DNA, your most personal, most intimate data, after you get those results? Well, it goes on a pretty wild journey of its own, and that's exactly what we're going to unpack today.
Think about this for a second. You paid, what, $100 for that test? You paid for a service. But the story doesn't end there. Not by a long shot. Your genetic information just became an incredibly valuable commodity. It's a product, and there's a massive multi-million-dollar market for it that you are now a part of, whether you realize it or not.
So, you're probably asking, how is that even legal? How can a company sell my data? To really get it, we have to rewind the clock a bit. The legal groundwork for all of this was laid decades before the first home DNA kit was ever sold. It all started with a few really important court cases that changed everything. Yeah, this legal precedent was built piece by piece over time. It arguably started back in the 1950s with an amazing woman named Henrietta Lacks. Her cells were taken without her consent and turned out to be, well, immortal. They became the famous HeLa cell line, which has been absolutely crucial for medicine. Then in the 70s, a man named John Moore was being treated for leukemia. Doctors discovered his cells were unique, and without telling him, they created and patented a cell line from them that was worth a fortune. He sued, of course, and the case went all the way to the California Supreme Court, which made a landmark decision. Once your tissue is removed from your body, it's no longer legally your property.
And that ruling created this legal framework that we can basically call the Moore model. It means that when you provide a biological sample, whether it's blood, tissue, or saliva, you're legally considered a donor. And as a donor, you waive all your rights to control what happens to it, or, and this is the big one, to profit from any amazing discoveries made using it. This single idea became the bedrock of the entire industry. So, what was the court's reasoning? Why did they rule this way? Well, their main argument was that if they gave every individual property rights to their own tissue, it would have a chilling effect on medical research. They were worried it would create a logistical nightmare for scientists, having to track down and pay thousands of people. They thought it would just grind scientific progress to a halt. And right there, that's the core tension. Individual rights on one side and the greater good of scientific discovery on the other. Okay, so let's fast forward to today and see how that legal precedent has basically fueled a modern-day gold rush. Except this time, the gold isn't something you dig out of the ground. It's literally inside all of us. It's in our DNA. $300 million. Just let that sink in for a second. That was the price tag for one single deal. Back in 2018, the company 23andMe gave the pharmaceutical giant GlaxoSmithKline, or GSK, exclusive access to its customers' genetic data. Now, this wasn't for more test kits or anything like that. This was for the raw, de-identified data, meaning they stripped out your name and address from millions of people just like you.
So why on earth is this data worth so much money? Well, for drug companies, it's like being handed a treasure map. With millions of genetic profiles, they can spot patterns and find genetic targets for brand new drugs to treat things like Alzheimer's or cancer. For example, GSK used that 23andMe data to instantly find people with a specific gene linked to Parkinson's disease for their clinical trials. Finding those people used to take years. This is literally the key to creating personalized precision medicine.
And how do they do this legally? It all comes down to that long, boring consent form you scroll through and click agree on without reading. Buried deep in the terms of service, there's usually a little checkbox where you opt in to participate in scientific research. Now, most of us probably think, oh, that's cool, they're doing research in their own lab. But that little click often gives these companies permission to sell or license your anonymized data to all kinds of outside partners. Okay, so this brings us to an even bigger kind of philosophical question. If a company can make millions of dollars from your genes, can they actually own a piece of the human genome? Can you literally put a patent on life itself?
Well, the answer is a little complicated. It's yes and no. In a huge Supreme Court case back in 2013, the court ruled that you cannot patent naturally occurring human genes. Why? Because they're a product of nature, just like gold or a tree. You didn't invent it, so you can't own it. That one decision wiped out thousands of existing gene patents overnight. But, and this is a huge but, the court left a massive door open. They said that if you create a synthetic version of DNA in a lab, which is called cDNA, that can be patented. Because it's technically a human invention, it's not something found in nature.
So this current model, it clearly works out great for the big corporations and the researchers. But what about you? What about the individual? Well, there's a new, pretty disruptive model starting to emerge that wants to completely flip this whole script and put the power right back in your hands. Say hello to the idea of a DNA marketplace. It's a total paradigm shift. Instead of some company owning your data, you do. Using super secure technology like the blockchain, which is basically just a transparent and unchangeable digital logbook, you could hold your own encrypted genetic code in a kind of personal digital vault. So here's how it would actually work in practice. A pharmaceutical company wants to study a gene that you happen to have. Instead of buying a database, they send a request directly to you. You get to review their project, you see exactly what they're trying to do, and you get to be the one who says yes or no. And if you approve, you get paid directly for licensing your data for that specific purpose. You are in complete control from start to finish. And listen, this isn't just some sci-fi fantasy. This is happening right now. There are startups out there like Nebula Genomics and Encryptogen that are actively building these platforms. They're trying to create a whole new, more fair and transparent ecosystem for genetic research.
So what does all this really mean for you? Well, it represents a fundamental shift in power. This new model transforms you from just being a passive subject or a donor into becoming the CEO of your own biological information.
Let's look at the financial difference here, because it is stark. In the traditional model, what's your direct financial return for contributing your DNA? A big fat zero. Nothing. But in a marketplace model, that value suddenly becomes very real. Some estimates suggest a single genome could be licensed for around $130. Other models are even proposing giving you shares in the company, making you a part owner of the research platform itself.
And this is more than just about money. It's a huge philosophical change. You're no longer just the raw material for discovery. You become an active partner. You become a shareholder in the scientific advancements that your own data helps make possible. You have a seat at the table.
So ultimately, this whole conversation leads us to one final powerful thought. This debate over our genetic data is about so much more than just privacy or profit. It's about agency. It's about value. And as this technology gets more and more advanced, the question of who gets to control and capitalize on the literal blueprint of human life is only going to become more urgent. The real question is, who do you think should be holding the pen?
Thank you for spending time with us here at the Violet Vault. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, stay focused and keep growing.